It was one of those bright Monday mornings that feel too calm to be real. Sunlight bouncing off the windshield, the city humming like a song I didn't remember liking. I had Adam's forgotten wallet on the passenger seat and a plan to surprise him with lunch. Maybe it was silly, but I missed him. Or at least the version of him that used to look up when I walked into a room. Lately, he'd been too busy with new projects, always training someone new. Still, I wanted to believe that a small gesture could remind him we were more than schedules and deadlines. I had no idea I was about to walk straight into a lie I hadn't even imagined. The lobby of his office was sleek and cold, the kind of place that smelled like coffee and ambition. My heels echoed on the marble floor as the receptionist, all smiles and red nails, greeted me like an old friend. "He's in the break room," she said, pointing me toward a hallway filled with laughter. I smiled back, clutching the lunch bag tighter. For a moment, I let myself picture his face lighting up, that warm, slightly crooked smile that used to make my mornings. But as I turned the corner, I felt something shift in the air, like the calm before a storm. He was there, leaning against the counter, mug in hand, mid-laughter. The sound cut off the second he saw me. "Clara, what are you doing here?" His voice cracked just slightly, and that was enough to make my stomach tighten. I held up his wallet like a peace offering. "Just being a good wife," I said, smiling. "You left this." The words barely left my lips before the room fell still, and that's when she stepped forward, young, confident, wearing the kind of perfume that fills a room before she speaks. She smiled at me like we were already friends. "Oh, so you're Clara, the ex who still lives with him." The words hit me like cold water, stealing the air right out of my lungs. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. The room froze. Spoons stopped clinking. Laughter vanished. Everyone stared, waiting to see what I'd do. My smile stayed, but it felt heavy, plastered on like armor I hadn't realized I'd need that morning. "I'm sorry." "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice softer than I expected. She blinked, clearly nervous now, her smile faltering. "Oh, I thought Adam said, everyone just assumed—" Adam cut in fast, his tone sharp. "Erica, that's not— it's just a misunderstanding." My eyes found his, searching for the truth, but all I saw was panic. The kind of panic that doesn't come from confusion, but from getting caught. "A misunderstanding," I repeated, this time without a smile. "Because it sounded like you've been introducing me as your ex." The silence in that room had weight. I could feel every pair of eyes shifting from him to me, from me to her. He opened his mouth, but no words came out that could possibly fix it. I set the wallet on the table, gently, deliberately, the way you'd set down something that doesn't belong to you anymore. Then I turned and walked out, one step after another, steady but shaking inside. As the elevator doors closed, I stared at my reflection in the mirrored wall. My face looked calm, too calm. But under that stillness, 1,000 thoughts collided. Confusion, anger, disbelief, and something colder. That last one scared me most. It wasn't heartbreak. It was realization. Maybe this was who Adam had become. Or maybe this was who he'd always been. And I was just late to the truth. The drive home felt longer than usual, though I don't remember most of it. The city blurred past, traffic lights, honking cars, a couple holding hands at a crosswalk. All I could hear was that voice replaying in my head. The ex who still lives with him. Over and over, like a cruel echo that refused to fade. My fingers gripped the steering wheel, white-knuckled, but my mind was somewhere else entirely, trying to piece together how long I'd been living in someone else's version of my marriage. At home, the silence felt different. The walls that once held laughter now seemed to hold their breath, waiting for me to break the news that everything inside them was a lie. I set down the lunch bag on the counter and stared at it. The sandwiches, the neatly folded napkin, all those tiny gestures of love that suddenly felt misplaced. I wasn't crying, though I expected to. Instead, I felt hollow, like something inside me had quietly shut off to keep me standing. Shock does that, I guess. It protects you, until you're ready to feel the damage. That night, as the sun dipped below the blinds, I caught myself wondering what hurt more, that he lied, or that he made others believe the lie first. The thought lodged deep in my chest, heavy and cold. I promised myself I wouldn't confront him yet. Not until I knew exactly what kind of story he'd been telling. Because if he'd rewritten our truth in front of strangers, I wanted to read every page of his fiction before I burned it to the ground. That night, the clinking of silverware was louder than any conversation. I pushed food around my plate, pretending to eat, while Adam talked about work as if the morning hadn't happened. The room smelled like garlic and resentment. He finally sighed, setting down his fork. "Clara, are we really doing this? You know how gossip spreads. She probably misheard something." His tone was light, dismissive, the same tone he used when forgetting anniversaries or promises. I looked at him, steady. "So you didn't tell her I was your ex?" He laughed, short and defensive. "Of course not. I just said things have been tense lately. She must have twisted it." That word, tense, rolled off his tongue like a convenient excuse. "Tense?" I repeated, my voice calm but sharp. "We've been married 10 years, Adam. Tense isn't the word I'd use for what you've turned us into." His jaw clenched, but he didn't look up. He just kept slicing his food like the truth wasn't sitting across from him. He muttered something under his breath, too soft to catch. "What was that?" I asked. His eyes flicked up, anger flashing. "You're overreacting. You always do. That's why I don't tell people much. You make a big deal out of everything." I felt that one hit harder than he expected. I wanted to shout, to throw something. But instead, I just breathed in slowly. "Maybe if you told me the truth once in a while," I said quietly. "I wouldn't have to." The silence that followed was sharper than glass. I left him at the table, still chewing his lies like they were dinner. The house felt too big as I walked away. Every picture frame and coffee mug suddenly foreign. Our home, once warm and familiar, had turned into a museum of what used to be love. I could feel the sting behind my eyes, but I refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. I shut myself in the bedroom, the air thick with everything unsaid. My reflection in the mirror looked composed, but my heartbeat betrayed me, steady and angry. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to make sense of how easily he dismissed me, as if my pain were just another argument he could win. My thoughts circled the same questions. When did honesty become optional? When did love start sounding like PR? He'd rewritten our story, made me a supporting character in his own image of freedom. But what he didn't know, what he could never understand, was that I'd grown stronger in his silence. He thought I was the same woman who once cried over missed dinners. He was wrong. As the night wore on, the sound of the clock filled the house, each tick louder than the last. Somewhere between exhaustion and fury, something inside me hardened. The part of me that used to wait for apologies began to disappear. He was comfortable lying about me. That much was clear. But comfort has a cost, and soon he'd learn what it's like to lose it. I lay down, staring at the ceiling, not as a heartbroken wife, but as a woman planning her next move. He came into the bedroom later, the sound of his footsteps too casual for a man who'd just fractured a marriage. He didn't apologize. Not really. He just stood by the door, sighing, waiting for me to end the silence like I always did. But I didn't move. I could feel his impatience growing, his need to control the story, even here, in the dark. "You're really going to be mad about something so small?" he finally said. Small. That word felt like a slap dressed in politeness. I turned my face away, letting him talk to the wall instead. He mumbled something about miscommunication and stress, the kind of empty words meant to patch holes without fixing them. I didn't argue. I just listened, memorizing the rhythm of his lies, storing every phrase for later. When he finally gave up and left, the house sank into stillness again. The air was cool against my skin, but my thoughts burned. For the first time, I realized this wasn't about saving what we had. It was about reclaiming what I'd lost, my self-respect, my voice, my truth. I reached for my phone, not to call anyone, but to remind myself there were people who still saw me, really saw me. A text from Maggie sat unread from last week, just a friendly check-in. I didn't open it yet. Instead, I whispered into the quiet room, "Let's see how you handle the truth, Adam." The sound of my own voice surprised me. Steady, certain. I wasn't broken. I was awakening. And though he didn't know it yet, the next chapter of our story wouldn't be written by him. By morning, the anger had settled into something colder. Focus. I brewed my coffee in silence, watching the steam curl like smoke signals to no one. Adam had already left, off to his precious office where stories about me apparently came easier than honesty. I sat at the kitchen counter, phone in hand, scrolling through names I barely knew from company dinners and Christmas parties. One stood out, Maggie. Kind eyes, polite smile. The type who noticed things others missed. If anyone knew what was really going on, it'd be her. I hesitated before calling, thumb hovering over her contact. There's always that moment before the truth, the one where you almost choose ignorance just to stay comfortable. But comfort had become a stranger in my house, so I tapped call. When she picked up, her voice carried that mix of warmth and caution. "Clara. Oh, hi. How are you?" My throat tightened. "Hey, Maggie. Sorry to bother you. I just wanted to ask something a little odd." Even as I said it, my pulse raced, because I already knew the answer would hurt. There was a pause long enough to confirm my suspicion before she spoke again. "Is this about Erica?" My stomach dropped. "So you've heard?" I asked quietly. Another pause. "Clara, I didn't want to get involved, but Adam's been telling people you two broke up months ago, that you're just staying with him until you find your own place." The world tilted for a second. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there gripping the mug so tightly my hand shook. "I see," I whispered. "Thank you, Maggie. That's all I needed to know." After I hung up, I just sat there, staring at the wall, hearing her words echo over and over. "He's been telling people you broke up months ago." It wasn't just a lie, it was a rewrite of my entire life. My hand was trembling, though my face stayed still. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence like white noise, the kind that makes you feel both numb and aware at once. I'd been erased in his version of the story, reduced to some sad woman overstaying her welcome. And he'd said it with enough confidence that people believed him. I closed my eyes, breathing in slow. Anger wasn't enough anymore. This was humiliation dressed up as narrative control. He'd built a version of himself where he got to play the victim, the noble husband who tolerated his ex-wife. The irony burned. I used to admire his confidence. Now I saw it for what it was, cowardice polished to look like charm. My tears didn't fall. They dried somewhere behind my ribs, replaced by something sharper. For the first time, I didn't just want answers. I wanted consequences. I opened my laptop, the glow lighting up the dark kitchen. My fingers moved automatically. Emails, contacts, details. I wasn't sure what I was looking for yet, but I knew I'd find it. Every receipt, every event, every message he'd thought I'd never see. It wasn't rage driving me anymore. It was clarity. Betrayal, when stripped of its emotion, becomes the cleanest kind of focus. And in that moment, I knew. I wouldn't confront him with tears. I'd confront him with proof and an audience. The sun had started to set, streaking gold through the blinds, but I barely noticed. Hours slipped by as I combed through old emails and shared calendars, piecing together the invisible distance that had been growing between us. There it was. The training sessions, the late nights, all aligning perfectly with a pattern I hadn't wanted to see. Every discovery felt like another quiet betrayal, the kind that didn't scream. It whispered, patient and cruel. Still, beneath the ache, something powerful was taking shape. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was preparing. I closed the laptop and stared at my reflection in the darkened window. I looked like myself, but not quite. There was a new steadiness in my eyes, a stillness that used to belong to him. It felt strange, almost dangerous how calm I'd become. Maybe that's what happens when the shock fades. You stop drowning and start swimming toward the shore, even if the water's still cold. I wasn't the woman who begged for truth anymore. I was the woman who would make truth unavoidable. Before going to bed, I wrote a list in my notebook. Names, dates, small details. It wasn't a plan yet, but it was the start of one. The next company event was listed on the fridge calendar, highlighted in Adam's handwriting. Corporate dinner, mandatory attendance. Perfect. I smiled, just slightly, tracing the words with my finger. He'd been so proud of his reputation there. Maybe that's where he'd finally meet the version of me he'd been introducing to everyone else, the ex who no longer cared how it looked. A week passed, each day quieter than the one before. Adam still left early, came home late, pretending the air between us wasn't thick enough to choke on. I stopped asking questions. I stopped reacting. He thought silence meant surrender, but it was strategy. Every morning, I watched him knot his tie, wondering how many lies he could wrap around himself before they strangled him. The corporate dinner invitation sat on the counter, gold lettering and arrogance gleaming beneath the kitchen light. He didn't know I planned to attend. The day of the event, I took my time. The dress I chose wasn't revenge red or heartbreak black. It was elegance in the shape of composure, soft silver that caught the light like calm confidence. My reflection looked peaceful, even forgiving, and that made me smile. Revenge doesn't always need fire. Sometimes it's ice that burns longer. I slipped the RSVP card into my clutch, signed as Mrs. Clara Hayes. Not +1. Just me, whole, deliberate, undeniable. When I arrived at the venue, the hum of conversation wrapped around me like static. Crystal glasses clinked, laughter floated through the air, and every table glowed with polite pretense. I could feel eyes turning, subtle whispers tracing the edges of my name. And then, there she was, Erica, standing by the wine bar, her face lighting up in surprise. "Oh, I didn't think you'd come," she said. I smiled, my tone warm enough to pass for friendly. "Why wouldn't I? My husband works here." Her lips parted, but no words came out. The night had just begun, and so had I. I spotted Adam across the room before he noticed me. He was laughing with a group of colleagues, gesturing with that familiar self-assuredness that used to charm me. But when his gaze finally met mine, the color drained from his face. It was almost theatrical. The pause, the flicker of panic, the forced smile he plastered on as if it could erase the truth. I lifted my champagne glass slightly, a silent toast across the room, watching him shift uncomfortably. For the first time in a long while, I felt in control. He made his way over, smile strained. "Clara," he began, voice low, "you shouldn't have come." I tilted my head, keeping my tone light. "Why not? I'm your wife, remember?" The word wife landed between us like a challenge. He glanced around, nervous, scanning for who might be listening. "Let's not make a scene," he hissed. I smiled. "Oh, don't worry, Adam. I didn't come to make one. But we both knew I wasn't there for small talk. The truth had been waiting too long to stay polite. The evening rolled on, music swelling, lights dimming as the employee spotlight portion began. Adam's name was announced, followed by applause. I watched him rise, straightening his jacket, pretending confidence. He didn't see me stand until I was already walking toward the stage. The room blurred, clinking glasses, curious whispers, the sharp scent of nerves and cologne. Every step I took was measured, graceful, inevitable. This wasn't anger anymore. It was clarity in motion. When I reached the stage, I could hear my own heartbeat beneath the hum of the crowd. Adam stood frozen, microphone in hand, that practiced smile of his flickering like a dying light. I took the mic gently, my tone calm, almost kind. "Good evening, everyone," I began, scanning the faces that had once heard my name twisted into something untrue. "I'm Clara, Adam's current wife." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. I just wanted to clear up a small misunderstanding. Apparently, I'm his ex who still lives with him. Funny, I wasn't aware I'd been divorced. The silence that followed was electric, sharp enough to feel. I could see Erica in the corner, her expression caught somewhere between guilt and shock. Adam reached for the mic, his face pale. "Clara, stop. You're embarrassing yourself," he whispered, voice trembling beneath his anger. I turned to him, my smile soft, almost sympathetic. "No, Adam," I said quietly, but it carried through the room. "I'm not embarrassing myself. I'm embarrassing you. There's a difference." A few gasps scattered through the crowd like sparks catching wind. I handed him the mic, leaned in close enough for only him to hear. "You can finish explaining, if you still have the audience," I whispered. Then I stepped down, my heels steady against the polished floor. The applause that followed wasn't loud. It was polite, uncertain, but real. I didn't look back. Every step toward the exit felt lighter, freer. And as the doors closed behind me, I realized something simple. He'd spent months rewriting our story. Tonight, I'd taken the pen back. The next morning, the house didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like evidence. Every picture frame, every coffee cup, every trace of our life together was now a record of something that had already ended. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee cooling beside me, waiting. I knew he'd come home eventually, and when he did, it wouldn't be with regret. Adam never apologized first. He attacked. Sure enough, the door slammed open, followed by the heavy rhythm of his anger. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he shouted. "My boss saw that." I didn't flinch. "Good," I said simply, without looking up. "I hope he also saw the kind of man you are." That made him pause, not because he was hurt, but because I didn't sound like someone he could control anymore. He moved closer, voice rising. "You humiliated me." I took a sip of coffee, slow, deliberate. "No," I replied. "I just told the truth. You're the one who built your career on lies. Maybe it's time you learn what that feels like." He slammed his fist against the counter, but I didn't move. I'd already seen his worst, and survived it. His anger deflated into frustration. "You've ruined my life," he muttered. The words almost made me laugh. "No, Adam," I said, finally standing. "I just stopped letting you ruin mine." I reached for the envelope I'd placed on the table earlier, clean, white, and final. "This is for you," I said, sliding it toward him. He stared at it, jaw tight. "What's this?" he asked, though he already knew. "Freedom," I answered. "Yours and mine." He didn't open the envelope right away. He just stared at it like it might bite. "You're really doing this?" he finally asked, his voice low, almost pleading. "After everything we've built?" I looked at him, really looked, and realized I didn't recognize him anymore. "You built a version of us that only existed in your head," I said softly. I just stopped pretending to live there. He opened the papers, scanning them, disbelief flickering across his face. "You're divorcing me?" he whispered, as if the word itself were a betrayal. "No," I corrected gently. "You divorced me the moment you lied about who I was." He sat down, rubbing his temples, but I'd seen this act before, the wounded charm, the sudden vulnerability. It didn't move me this time. For years, I had mistaken his silence for peace, his detachment for composure. Now, I saw it clearly. It was cowardice wearing a nice suit. "Clara, please," he said, reaching out a hand. I stepped back. "You had every chance to tell the truth. You chose the story that made you look good instead." My voice didn't tremble. It was strange how calm strength could sound like mercy. When I walked to the door, he didn't follow. The silence behind me wasn't heavy anymore. It was clean, like fresh air after a storm. I paused for a second just to take it in. The woman leaving that house wasn't the same one who'd walked into his office weeks ago, clutching a lunch bag and a wallet. She was done trying to be understood. Now, she was choosing to be free. As I stepped outside, the morning light hit my face, and for the first time in years, it felt like mine. I walked down the driveway with my suitcase rolling softly behind me. The air felt different, lighter, like the world had finally exhaled with me. The morning breeze carried the scent of cut grass and something faintly sweet, maybe freedom. For years, I'd imagined leaving as a dramatic scene, tears, shouting, chaos. But in reality, it was quiet, peaceful. The kind of ending that didn't need an audience. I didn't glance back at the house. Let him keep the walls filled with his stories. I was done living in them. At the car, I slipped off my wedding ring and held it in my palm. It was beautiful once, a symbol, a promise, a beginning. Now it was just metal, polished but empty. I set it gently on the hood, watching the sunlight glint off it one last time. "Goodbye," I whispered, not to him, but to the version of myself that had stayed too long trying to fix something broken by choice. Closure, I realized, wasn't loud. It was the quiet confidence of finally walking away without needing to explain why. As I drove off, the city unfolded before me like a clean page. Every stoplight, every turn felt deliberate, a choice I was finally making for me. The farther I got from that house, the lighter I felt, until the weight I'd carried for years was nothing but dust in the rearview mirror. I didn't know exactly what came next, and that was the best part. For the first time, my story didn't revolve around what he did to me. It was about what I'd do next, on my own terms. It's been months since I left, and life finally feels like mine again. The mornings are slower now. No rush, no rehearsed smiles, no pretending. I work from a small cafe near my apartment, the kind with chipped tables, good coffee, and music that sounds like healing. People there know me as Clara, not Adam's wife. It's strange how powerful your own name feels when it isn't attached to someone else's. I built a new rhythm, one that hums softly instead of demands. And in that stillness, I found something I hadn't felt in years: peace. One afternoon, as I sipped my coffee, I heard a familiar laugh. Maggie. She spotted me first, waving me over with that same gentle warmth. "Clara, you look incredible. How's life?" she said. I smiled, setting my cup down. "Peaceful," I answered. "Finally. I've started consulting. My own clients, my own schedule." Her face lit up. "I'm so glad. You deserve it." For the first time, I believed those words. Not because someone said them, but because I'd earned them. Every scar had turned into proof of my survival. Then she asked, almost carefully, "And Adam?" I smiled, not bitterly, just knowingly. "Let's just say he's finally telling the truth about one thing," I said, leaning back in my chair. He's single now. Maggie laughed, that kind of laugh that feels like closure. As I left the cafe, my reflection caught in the window. The same woman, but rebuilt. My steps were steady, my heart light. Some stories end with revenge. Mine ended with freedom.